the chief mining officer, Ben Gagnon, he did do an interview with this channel called McNally Money, and it's like an hour-long interview. If you have time, and if you're interested in stuff like this, I highly recommend you watch it. It's a pretty great interview, in my opinion. I did watch all of it. But in case you don't have an extra hour and you don't want to just sit there and watch like an interview, I did summarize this interview. So let me just go through some of the key points of this interview, and then I'll once again toss a question back to you guys, and then you guys can, give your opinions on that. So basically, you guys can see I posted like a bunch of. This is on my X channel, by the way. So if you go there, you can go find this post. So I'll skip the first three because that's just summarization of exactly what we just went through. But the new information that's provided in the interview. So number 4 is, I'm starting with number 4 on the list. There's 2 more large buckets of growth planned for the second half of 2024. That will bring Bitfarms to their 21 exahash target, right? So it'll happen through a combination of upgrades of existing sites and a construction of a new site in Paraguay. So this was already previously announced. So this is just Ben Gagnon giving like kind of an overview of how exactly the 21 exahash will happen. And they are also planning on optimizing the machines and seeing like which machines go where, right? So I think Ben was saying how the benefit of the mining industry is that you can always sell the older machines because there's always a market even for lower efficiency machines. You think that a machine gets obsolete and it gets outdated and is no longer the most efficient one, then it just becomes garbage, right? Well, actually no, because there's places where energy is pretty much free. Like somebody has like these, let's say, solar panels that like otherwise they can't really like use because they don't have the infrastructure to like sell the electricity back to the grid, but they can't really like monetize the energy in other ways, right? So that's a perfect use for even like these lower efficiency Bitcoin mining machines. So for example, if Bitfarms retires a bunch of like the old machines, there'll still be a market for them because people will buy them up. And then if they have these like renewable sources like solar energy that they're getting basically for free, right? Because they already have the solar panels, then they can plug those machines in and then try to monetize some of the money. Even though it's not the most efficient way, it's still better than zero, right? So that was kind of what point number 5 meant. So number 6, Bitfarms has made a strategic decision to not always buy the best mining rigs. So the example of this that Ben gave was T21s versus S21s. So T21s are a tier lower than S21s, but the T21s are like half the price of the S21s apparently, right? And the performance is not like half the performance, is greater than half the performance. So this is kind of just another example of how Bitfarms is kind of optimizing their operations, right? You don't always need the greatest and latest equipment because that comes at a premium. So maybe it's a better choice to sometimes get the second best equipment. So number 7, there's opportunities to get more exahash. It depends on like how hard you crank the machines too, right? So it's like the machines are rated for a certain amount of exahash, but if you try to crank them harder, it's going to use more electricity and produce more heat. But sometimes that does work really well as well if you can get more electricity. So the electricity is kind of like the biggest bottleneck to growth. A lot of people think it's the machines. Well, it's like you can get more machines or you can crank machines harder, but getting the electricity is kind of the main kind of bottleneck to growth. And number 9, he spoke a bit about the synthetic HODL. In case you guys don't remember what that is, Bitfarms buys call options on Bitcoin as well as holding actual Bitcoin. So buying call options is kind of like it's exactly the same principle as buying call options on stocks, right? Like you spend less money up front, and then you can use the money that you saved by buying calls instead of shares, and you can use that money to go do something else with it. In Bitfarms' case, they're buying some call options on Bitcoin, so you get the upside exposure to Bitcoin itself. but at the same time, you're freeing up a lot of cash to invest in other parts of the business. So apparently, that's still going well. And the first Bitcoin call options they bought was when Bitcoin was well below 40K. So those are likely highly profitable. He didn't want to go into like the details as to what the strike and expiry is, because those strategies can change like at any moment, right? They could decide to like roll the options into longer term if they think that they're running out of time, or like change the strike price or whatever, right? So it's so that's why like Ben said he didn't want to share the exact details, because it just confuse people and it's not relevant. So, number 10, just to reiterate, Bitcoin miners are a leverage play on Bitcoin, right? That's why we're all here. It's because we are all believers in Bitcoin. However, we think that we can get even more upside than Bitcoin itself by buying Bitcoin miners. If that wasn't the case, then no one would invest in Bitcoin miners, right? Just buy Bitcoin like normal people. Then we won't be degens anymore. So yeah. Anyways, number 11 is why is there a disparity recently between the performance of Bitfarms stock on compared to Bitcoin or other miners? And Ben Gagnon has noticed this, and he says like, it's just because the market lacks experience and expertise in valuing Bitcoin miners, right? So we said a long time on this show as well that we think that Bitfarms is super undervalued, and it's been super undervalued for quite a few months now. And this can happen, right? It's like, okay, Andy, I get what you're saying. You're saying that it's undervalued. You've been saying that for the past like 6 months. When is it not going to be undervalued, right? Well, I can't answer that question because that's just how the market is, right? Like a stock can be undervalued for a long time. That doesn't mean that like it's always going to be undervalued, right? So the market is kind of learning on how to evaluate Bitcoin miners, I think, and Ben said this as well. And yeah, it's just going to take some time for the market to adjust on how to treat this industry as a whole. So number 12, Bitcoin mining at the scale of Bitfarms is a huge task, right? And apparently Bitfarms is the largest customer of DHL Canada. So not DHL in general, but just DHL Canada, by the weight of freight moved, because they're using DHL to move all their mining equipment from North America to South America, to places like Paraguay and Argentina. So yeah, I mean, apparently they had to establish like custom routes and do custom deals with DHL because they're moving so much freight. So number 13, Bitfarms is taking a more conservative approach by ensuring that the sites and stuff are already in place, the electricity is already in place before committing to buying more machines. So it sounds like they are very careful to they're taking a conservative approach to factoring in how to grow. And number 14, this is the big situation that everybody's talking about, the Bitfarms CEO situation. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of details at this moment, and there's no specific timeline. But Ben reassured us that the search process is still underway, and the company obviously wants to be careful on who they select. And number 15, this is the question about the Riot offer, right? So in case you guys don't know, Riot offered $2.30 per share to buy out Bitfarms, and I believe that Bitfarms is trading above that at the moment now. But at the time when they announced it, it was like the offer price was slightly above the stock price at that time. However, even then, even in that case, this is, in Ben's opinions, undervaluing the company, and I think that like everyone besides Riot in the shareholder base agrees. So the board has rejected this offer, but it feels like I think Riot is continuing to accumulate shares. In fact, we got the news today that Riot has upped their stake in Bitfarms to 12%. So Riot actually owns 12% of the company now, and they're continuing to stack shares. So it appears that they're really trying to push this deal through. However, the other shareholders, I feel like no one else is biting, and the operational part of Bitfarms continues as usual, and a special committee has been set up within the company to kind of have legal counsel deal with this riot situation. So that's being taken care of, and we don't have any more updates at the moment. And yeah, and then lastly, I think an update about the VAT refund. So Bitfarms is getting a tax refund, and they've already received 75% of it. And this was in Canada for their Quebec sites. So they received 75% of their tax refund already, and the money will be well spent. Of course, that is what Ben would say. But anyways, that is it for the interview. And I've just covered an hour-long interview in the past like 5 to 10 minutes. So apologize if I miss anything, but let me toss the question back to you guys now. So what did you guys think of this summary? Do you want to comment on any specific points, or if not, do you want to comment anything on anything that I've just shared?
Yeah, I think that it was a good interview overall. I think that there's a few things that we're all still kind of a little bit frustrated with, in the sense of like, we're all kind of sitting here wanting this CEO issue figured out as soon as possible, so that we can you know, stop having this FUD hanging over our head. And I think that that's pretty much the big problem with Bitfarms' stock price currently. Is I think that they're being hampered by this threat. Well, not threat, the FUD. And then in addition, the threat of Riot performing a hostile takeover on Bitfarms is also kind of floating around, where we're all a little bit uncomfortable with the potential of Riot to come in and take over, which I think may also be reducing the number of people who are willing to purchase Bitfarms, because, you know, if you have the option between Bitfarms and a different company, maybe you will play a different company instead if you think that Riot's going to buy them for a steep discount. So yeah, there's some risks, but I think that overall it does sound like we should be keeping an eye on Bitfarms for sure. And that it is still, I'm still of the opinion that they are undervalued. So I think that that is something that is not really been figured out yet. So once they get that CEO established, I think there could be a lot of gains coming our way in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. Dom, you want to provide your thoughts on this?
I think like a few things specifically stood out to me. In terms of, I think you said they're using sources of like solar, although it's not like the most productive, it's still something. And I do kind of believe in things like that. If you can get anything out of anything, you might as well just pursue that, because it's better than getting nothing at all. So I thought that was pretty neat. And
it's hard to cut you off, Dom. To be clear, I don't think Bitfarms themselves are doing solar. I said that they could sell the miners that they deprecate to people who use solar. So I don't believe that Bitfarms have any solar operations right now. They are using renewables, right? So I believe in Paraguay, it's all hydro, which is nice, right? So it's very clean. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, in general, there are a lot of different sources of renewable energy, of clean energy that are trapped. That's a market that Bitfarms could expand into themselves, or sell their machines to people who have solar. That's my point.
I see. Okay, Oopsie daisies, my bad. I just heard wrong. But what I did believe I heard was them using like kind of like older tier, if you want to call it, machines. Like they're not buying the newest and most high quality products to, like, I guess, mine. They're using like a little older technology, or like machines that basically produce the same amount of efficiency and level. I thought that was pretty interesting and something to highlight too. And another thing to highlight was, yeah, I guess like even they themselves thinks that 230 is like a bit of an extreme take. Like I think that's like extremely undervaluing the company. And I thought Okay, yeah, even they think that too. And then I think last but not least, I think what was I gonna say again? Like them, or like, I guess this is like kind of off topic, but Riot having like 12% is pretty fascinating too as well. I'm not sure what will happen with that, but only time will tell. And whatever happens, happens. And it's nice right now because the stock is doing decently well. And I think most of us are up. I don't know if Andy, you're up. I'm pretty sure you're like close, if not up by now. But so far, so good for us. So.
Yeah, full disclosure, I just checked my average cost, and I'm at $3.48 Canadian. So I'm not sure what that like converts to in USD, but I think it's around like 250 USD, right? So it's slightly higher than what the offer price from Riot was. So I'm pretty much at break even. If not, I'm only like a couple of like low single digit percentages off, short of break even still, but it's right around my break even. So if I were to dump my entire position of Bitfarms, like I would just like not lose any big money and not make any money either. So it would be the most like boring thing I ever did with investing. Just like, you know, sitting nervously in front of the computer for like 6 months and not make a penny. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I made some money during that like February run, and I did sell some during that February run. Maybe I should have sold more.